Lawyers for former President Donald Trump said in court papers filed yesterday that they intend to place accusations that the intelligence community was biased against Donald Trump at the heart of their defense against charges accusing him of illegally holding on to dozens of highly sensitive classified documents after he left office. The lawyers also indicated that they were planning to defend Trump by seeking to prove that the investigation of the case was politically motivated and biased. And Robert F. Kennedy, who's running for president as an independent, announced yesterday that he had filed papers to create his own political party in 6 states. Now, this is an effort to get his name on the ballot with fewer voter signatures than would be required for an unaffiliated candidate. Kennedy's campaign said that forming parties in those 6 states would reduce the number of signatures he needed to get on the ballot in all 50 states by 330,000, about a third of the previous total. So far, Kennedy has a confirmed spot on the ballot in only one state, and that is Utah. And he only had to collect 1,000 signatures to be on that ballot. Well, according to some experts, Joe Biden's best chance of winning re-election this fall is a rematch against Donald Trump. The former president, according to these experts, is so toxic, so polarizing, that his presence on the ballot, as Biden's advisors see it, will be the most powerful incentive possible to lure disinfected Democrats and independents back into the camp of the poll-challenged president. And Speaker Mike Johnson today, that is Republican Speaker Mike Johnson, threw cold water on the idea of striking an immigration deal with Democrats that could revive stalled legislation to send aid to the Ukraine. Now, this came hours before a meeting in which President Biden had planned to make a renewed push for the plan. And the High Court today was reviewing a pair of challenges to federal rules that require commercial fishermen to pay for at-sea monitors, cases that could lead to the demise of a very significant case named Chevron. Now, this Chevron case may go the way of, may become the next Roe v. Wade, because if overturned, it would change a very long-standing policy that federal agencies and not courts have the ultimate authority to interpret laws. And that is laws and regulations related to those agencies. Now, it's important to note that this case is being pushed by a billionaire Republican donor. And some folks saw Donald Trump's decisive victory in Iowa last night as some kind of predictor or indicator of what we should expect in the general election. But experts are warning us to not jump to conclusions. In fact, Donald Trump won last night in Iowa with half the vote. And that's very different than what happened in the 2020 Iowa caucuses, where 97% of the vote was with Donald Trump. So in reality, the not Trump vote was pretty significant. And those candidates, Vivek Ramaswamy, Nikki Haley, and Ron DeSantis collectively won almost 50% of the vote. These experts warn that if Donald Trump couldn't do better in an overwhelmingly white and rural state, it suggests that he may not do as well as some others have been predicting in the general election. And today, a Maine judge put off deciding whether Donald Trump's name can appear on that state's primary ballot, saying the Supreme Court needs to rule on the issue first, and says this case is very similar to the case out of Colorado. And a New York City judge today declined to dismiss the case against Daniel Penny. That's the Marine veteran who placed a black subway rider, Jordan Neely, in a fatal chokehold last year. Penny, 25 years old, pled not guilty in June after a grand jury indicted him on charges of second-degree manslaughter and criminally neglect homicide in the May 1st death of Mr. Neely. Now, Mr. Neely was a 30-year-old known subway rider who often performed dance routines in costumes as Michael Jackson. Well, this is Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. We're going all in on politics today, and on a day when we are talking politics, I am super excited to have with me experts such as Ed Sanders, who is a Democratic political analyst, and Richard Green, who is a Democratic strategist and communications expert. They both are regular contributors to the show, and I am always delighted to see what their take is on the latest news. And today, some pretty big news about Donald Trump, Joe Biden, and some of the other races we're going to be tracking in 2024. And in hour two, you know what we do? We go deep, we dig behind the headlines, and we bring you those stories that people are talking about and those stories that we think people should be talking about. Yesterday, we did a story on this really shocking new report out that says that if you are African American or a minority or a woman, there's a 20 to 30% chance that you will get a misdiagnosis in a hospital. Today, we are continuing to talk about health and healthcare outcomes, and we're going to talk to a woman who is leading the charge against a hospital because she said her mother was misdiagnosed and treated unfairly, treated poorly in this hospital. And as a result of the poor treatment that she received, that she ultimately died. This woman and her mom, her deceased mom, both medical professionals. She's from a medical family, and she believes that the treatment that her mom received is related to her race. So we're going to talk to this mom about her lawsuit and what happened in the case of her mom. Also, Dante King is going to join us. He's an assistant professor of medical education at the Mayo Clinic College of Medicine and Science. Going to talk to Dr. King about why we keep seeing so many stories like this. My guest in hour two, stories of Black people going to hospitals, going to emergency rooms, and either ending up in ICU or actually dying in hospitals. So make sure you stick around for hour two because it's all about your health. But before I bring on my guests, here's what I'm thinking about in real time. There's been a lot of pushback recently. The billionaire bully, I'll call him that, Bill Ackman, that led the charge against Dr. Claudine Gay, led the charge to have her ousted as the president of Harvard. He was on a podcast yesterday or 2 days ago where he said that if Dr. King, since we were celebrating MLK Day yesterday, saying if Dr. King was alive today, he would be against DEI efforts. Now, you can imagine how DEI experts, historians, even Dr. King's own daughter responded to that foolishness, using her father, trying to cherry pick his quotes. He referenced Dr. King's quote about this, being a colorblind society or having a dream that we would be a colorblind society. White supremacists in particular like to cherry pick that statement to try to show that Dr. King, wouldn't have been a supporter of affirmative action or reparations or DEI efforts. It's total unadulterated gaslighting. When Dr. King made that statement, he was being aspirational, saying, yes, when America lives up to its promise, when America creates a society free of systemic racism, a society that does not discriminate against Black and brown and other marginalized people, then yes, we can have a colorblind society. But Dr. King was no fool. In fact, he was brilliant, and he knew that we were far, far from that place in this country. And he was fighting on behalf of poor people, on behalf of Black and brown people. He was fighting for reparations. He was fighting for living wages. He was fighting for a country that recognized that Black people were not second-class citizens. And it's really sad to me when you see elected officials like Ron DeSantis, who's running for governor, who's the governor of Florida, use some of those distorted and downright, wrong interpretations of Dr. King's philosophy and his work as a civil rights leader to try to justify their support of white supremacy. And that is exactly what Ron DeSantis is doing. The Florida's Board of Education, a board that reports to him, that works at the pleasure of the governor, announced a rule that bans public colleges from using state and federal funds for diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, activities, and all policies. Now, this rule, announced by the Ron DeSantis Florida Board of Education, applies to 28 schools within the Florida college system. According to the Education Department, this new rule is going to ensure that taxpayer funds can no longer be used to promote DEI on Florida's 28 state college campuses. And these are some big colleges we're talking about. This Valencia College, Florida State College of Jacksonville, and others that have sizable Black and Latino students. And again, trying to justify the total elimination of DEI programs and policies and personnel on these campuses. The Florida Commissioner of Education, Manny Diaz, says that higher education must reject being corrupted by destructive ideologies. These actions today ensure that we will not spend our taxpayers' dollars supporting what he calls racial indoctrination that promotes division in our society. Just let that sink in. That DEI is somehow the reason for any divisions in our society, not white supremacy, not systemic racism, not 400 years of oppression and subjugation by white supremacists, but somehow a DEI policy that is only seeking to create fairness and equity is creating division. Don't fall for it. It's all BS. It's all gaslighting. And I would venture to say it's why Ron DeSantis is about to go down in flames in this presidential race, because he's trying to import the nonsense that he's enacted in Florida into a general election, and it's not working. A presidential election, I should say, and it's not working. So voters, keep voting for anyone other than Ron DeSantis, because he's not worthy of your vote. And I hope this is the last time he will serve as governor of the state of Florida. When we come forward, more of today's breaking and trending news right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
When you're young, life is full of choices. Don't let opioids like highly addictive and deadly fentanyl take away your life with just one wrong pill. Addiction is a disease that can affect anyone at any age. But there is a choice to get help for this disease. Find medically proven treatment options, including virtual, at choosemat.org.
Did you know there's dust floating around your home?
Really?
Yeah. Dust starts on hard surfaces like shelves and ceiling fans. And when you walk by, dust starts to move, compromising the quality of the air you and your family breathe.
So what do I do?
Get Swiffer Heavy Duty Duster. Swiffer Heavy Duty Duster is the fast and easy way to trap and lock dust.
Before it gets into the air.
Exactly. So you can just... Swiffer Heavy Duty Duster, proud partner of the American Lung Association.
Lowe's knows pros want savings now. That's why, as an MVP's Pro Rewards member, you get volume savings on orders of $1,500 or more at the Pro Desk. And there's more. We've lowered our prices on select top products like electrical wire and drywall, so you can get the job necessities for less. Because Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows pros. In-store only. Exclusions, restrictions, and more terms apply. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Stay Housed LA has the resources you need to know your rights and the legal support to back them up. The COVID-19 pandemic has cost people their jobs and livelihoods. This has left an estimated 1/3 of households not being able to make rent and facing losing their homes. This is a fear no one in our community should have to face. You have rights, though, and Stay Housed LA is here to help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between the County of Los Angeles, the City of Los Angeles, and local community and legal service providers. Together, they provide tenants with the information and support needed to exercise their rights so they can remain safely in their homes. Find out more about your rights by participating in a virtual tenant workshop. Get the legal assistance you need. Find additional resources in Los Angeles County and the City of Los Angeles. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA County for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. That's stayhousedla.org. Or call their hotline at 213-694-0040. We've got your flag with a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We are back, and in this hour, I'm joined by two veteran and expert political strategists, Ed Sanders and Richard Green. And it has been a big political year, and the year is what, 17 days? We're 17 days into the year. Thanks, Ed, and thanks, Richard, for joining me. So much going on in the news. Let's start with Ron DeSantis and that second place, not so great second place showing that he had in Iowa. We have to remember, Ed, Iowa is a place where Ron DeSantis spent a whole lot of money. It was not a place that he had just decided he couldn't win, and so much money, and the outcome was so poor that some of his money that was backing him, one of the super PACs that was backing him, has started to lay people off and started to pull folks out of New Hampshire. None of this is a good sign for Ron DeSantis.
I would agree. I mean, Iowa is sort of an interesting, and always has been sort of the interesting first stop on the presidential primary and caucus list. I think when you look at this year with the weather, turnout was always going to be a question, but it's a relatively low turnout event, and it's from a national perspective, it's hard to put a lot of understanding into what the vote was there. But what it does tell you is that from a campaign organizing perspective, that the DeSantis campaign really struggled to identify supporters and really struggled to get them out, which has to be incredibly troubling for his backers, because given such a small turnout, you would have expected if his candidacy had legs that they would have had a stronger turnout.
Well, even beyond Ron DeSantis in Iowa, Richard, Joe Scarborough and some others have said that Donald Trump should not be celebrating the victory in Iowa. He says that it's bad news for Donald Trump, because he says the fact that Trump had 50% of the Republicans not voting for him and 1/3 hating him in the state of Iowa is bad news for the president. What do you make of that?
I usually agree with Joe, but I think it was a glorious night for Donald Trump. He proved that you can sexually assault someone, you can have 91 federal and state indictments, you could lead an insurrection, you can be impeached twice, and you can still win the majority of Republicans. That's historically amazing. But the thing, and I want to address this to Ed as well, I think that Ron DeSantis is going to stay in no matter what, all the way to the end, which is good for Donald Trump, because Ron DeSantis's strategy is that something's going to happen to Donald Trump. He's either going to get convicted, or he's going to have a heart attack, or whatever, and he wants to go into the convention just still being on the, alive in the race.
Well, before you Donald Trump got 51% of the vote, that means 49% of the Republican vote he did not get. And I don't think we should just gloss over that. White folks were going to vote for Donald Trump. We know that. And it doesn't matter. He can rape somebody, he can shoot somebody. But Joe makes the point that Obama could get 90% of the vote in Iowa if he ran again, and that Trump's approximate 50% is an issue. What do you think about that, Ed?
I don't know that I agree. I mean, again, I think the level of turnout for the Iowa caucus, to me, I almost throw this out the door. It is not a caucus or a vote that is representative, truly of the whole state. It's what was the turnout for the caucus? I mean, it's something less than, I think, 5% of the total registered voters. So in the end game, I would look back at the national polls, and if you're Donald Trump, listen, Joe Scarborough has
But my point is, you guys, Donald Trump is touting this as some big victory. You just made the point, only such a small percentage. But we shouldn't gloss over the fact that 49% of the people of that small percentage did not vote for the guy. That has to say something about his popularity or lack thereof. So either you throw the whole thing out, or you got to deal with that fact.
But Areva, I think the only thing that really matters is what's going to happen in November. And the people who voted for Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis or Chris Christie or whoever, they're not going to vote for Joe Biden.
That's not true, Richard. There's a poll out. Did you see that poll, Richard and Ed, that said 43% of those Iowa voters that voted for Nikki Haley said they would vote for Joe Biden?
If
you guys see that?
If Donald Trump was convicted.
No, that's not the poll.
Really?
The poll says 43% of voters for Nikki Haley in Iowa said they would vote for Joe Biden if Nikki Haley is not on the general election ticket.
Well,
yeah, I don't disagree there. I listen, I think he has his detractors on the Republican side. I think what's clear about this is that he's still the front runner to receive the nomination, right?
Absolutely.
And you look forward. I don't see anything that's derailing him there. Is there a minority report? Is there a group that would not like to see him? Sure. The question is, is there a large enough base that he loses in sort of the national side of it if he's head to head with Biden or any Democrat? And that's still to be seen. But no, Donald Trump doesn't have a 100% lock on the Republican Party.
But
yes, go ahead.
Reva, yeah, I mean, that's a fascinating poll. But the bottom line is Joe Biden's not going to win Iowa, no matter how many Nikki Haley people don't vote for Donald Trump.
Who's not going to win?
Joe Biden is not going to win Iowa.
Joe Biden is not going to in the fall. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just
who won Iowa in 2020?
I'm sorry.
Who won Iowa in 2020?
I think Trump did. We can check. I'm pretty sure Trump did. I'm proceeding on the assumption that, as they say in the Republican Party, they're all going to come home. They might be pissed off now. They might be excited about Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis. But after all of the attacks that Donald Trump is going to make on Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and make this a huge, we got to think Trump won by over 90%, make this a huge thing. They're going to come home and they're going to hold their nose. They're going to vote for Donald Trump. But I do think that what I said, the strategy is, I mean, look what's going on in the E. Jean Carroll lawsuit right now. Trump is really embarrassing himself. And at some point, there will be a conviction or something. And Ron DeSantis wants to just be there, just in the game. And I think that's a smart strategy.
Well, I don't know if Ron DeSantis is going to make it, because you have to have money to run a national campaign, and he's going to get to that Florida primary, Ed. And is he going to want to be embarrassed and lose his own state? We know when candidates get to their own state, that's when the rubber kind of meets the road. They have to make decisions. What do you think about Ron DeSantis? He's going to be, if he loses bad, which we expect he will in New Hampshire, South Carolina, where is he going to get the donors that are going to ride this out with him, knowing that the convention is pretty much already rigged in Donald Trump's favor?
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with Richard that he's going to try to stay on the ballot. Listen, I mean, Nikki Haley is going to have to face that question first. South Carolina's coming up, and she's going to have to, suffer through the defeat in her home state. I think both of those candidates are in this to be an alternative, as Richard laid out, just in case. And that always has been their best case scenario, There has yet to be a break in right-leaning voters that shows you that there could be a wave in this primary season where they can overtake Donald Trump before the convention. It's not that. They're a just-in-case candidate at this point.
Yeah,
And
but
I
you
wanna-
got to have money to run a campaign. You can't just hang around unless you're just going to say, hey, just, dismiss all the staff, no ads, no campaigning, can't show up anywhere. And if you lose as badly as we know these two candidates are likely to lose over the next couple of months, I'm not sure they get to hold on until the convention. And what could happen to Donald Trump between now and the summer that would cause the delegates that are so committed to him to do anything other than vote for him? We'll continue that, but now I also want to talk about Robert Kennedy. He says he wants a whole new party since he can't get enough signatures to qualify to be on the ballot the old-fashioned way. We're going to talk about what harm a third-party candidate may do. Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580.
When we come forward.
So Areva,
I'm Amber Payton. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. Maryland Governor Wes Moore is unveiling his fiscal year 2025 budget proposal. Moore, who is Black, says the $63.1 billion spending plan focuses on 4 priorities, including making Maryland safer, more affordable, and more competitive while ensuring Maryland is the state that serves. Despite a growing budget deficit, Moore says the budget plan calls for no new taxes while boosting funding for child care programs, law enforcement, and the building of a new FBI headquarters in Greenbelt. The package also restores $150 million in proposed cuts to the state's transportation program. Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott is applauding the city police department's progress on reforms under the federal consent decree. Scott joined Police Commissioner Richard Worley to announce the department has reached full compliance on 2 sections of the decree, including transportation of persons in custody and officer assistance and support. That's the latest. I'm Amber Payton on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
Police activity has issued a singular investigation over in Studio City on the 101 North at Vineland Avenue. Right now, the right lane is currently blocked involving a fatality, and stop traffic is coming from Hollywood Boulevard over 20 minutes. Semi-involved accident in East LA has been cleared from the 5 South before Calzona, Indiana Street interchange, with heavy traffic in recovery that continues from the 101. Accident in Glendale has the 5 South off-ramp to the 134 Ventura Freeway partially blocked, causing heavy traffic flow. And over on the 101 South in Newberry Park, between Rancho Cañejo Boulevard, Orchard Road Interchange, and Moore Park Road, watch for a slight heavy delay.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice: continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Clippers are on the road, but they have a key injury concern. Starting center Ivica Zubac will be out 4 weeks with a strained right calf muscle. Mason Plumlee and Daniel Tice will fill in for Zubac. The Clippers are off until Sunday when they host Brooklyn. For some reason, Florida A&M is having trouble hiring a head football coach to replace Willie Simmons. Simmons left at HBCU to become an assistant coach at Duke. Florida A&M has brought in a search firm to help the school find a replacement for Simmons. Florida A&M AD Tiffany Dawn Sykes recommended Sean Gibbs of Fort Valley State, but Gibbs was rejected by alumni and the fan base. Top 5 women's college basketball teams in this week's AP poll: South Carolina, Iowa, Colorado, North Carolina State, and UCLA. USC is right behind at number 6. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader. If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580. That's right. Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580. By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure at KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. Got your beer. The leader when the leader. The leader. The leader. The leader. The leader. The leader.
COVID-19 renter protections are ending for City of Los Angeles tenants. Know your rights and these 3 facts. February 1st is the deadline to pay rental arrears for rent owed from October 1st, 2021 to January 31st, 2023. Residential tenants cannot be evicted without a reason or just cause. You have 5 days to respond to an eviction notice from the court. Learn more at housing.lacity.org. That's housing.lacity.org. Be informed, be protected, be at home.
KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment through the arts. Tia Chucha Central Cultural is on a mission to transform community in the Northeast San Fernando Valley and beyond through ancestral knowledge, the arts, literacy, and creative engagement. The Northeast San Fernando Valley has a population of about 500,000, the size of the city of Oakland, yet it has no bookstores, art galleries, or full-fledged cultural spaces until Tia Chucha opened its doors in 2001. Founded by renowned poet and activist Luis Rodriguez, Tia Chucha's Cultural Center provides a year-round free or low-cost arts and literacy bilingual intergenerational programming in mural painting, music, dance, writing, visual arts, healing art sessions, and healing talking circles. Activities also include Mexica, Aztec dance, indigenous cosmology, philosophy, and 2 weekly open mic nights, one in Spanish, the other in English. In addition, they host author readings, film screenings, and art exhibits. To express yourself, heal yourself, attend an event, or volunteer, please visit www.tiachucha.org. That's TIACHUCHA.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
It's KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. Let's music be ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
We are back, and in this segment, we are talking to political strategists and experts about this really explosive, what's probably going to be one of the most explosive election years of our era. Ed Sanders and Richie Green are joining me. And in hour 2, we're going to continue the conversation we started yesterday on your health. We're going to be talking to a woman who unfortunately lost her mom at a local hospital in Indiana. And she says that her mother was treated differently, and it's because of her race. Her mother and this daughter are both African American. And we're going to be talking to a doctor, a PhD doctor, about why is there so much systemic bias, and why are we seeing so many cases of folks, minority folks in particular, women, who are experiencing a difference in healthcare and health treatments. And so much of it is based on race. So make sure you stick around. This is a segment about your health, and we hope we can help save some lives. Okay, Ed, Robert Kennedy first was running as a Democrat, then decided he's going to run as an independent. And we talk a lot about these independent candidates, but a lot of folks don't know you can't just declare yourself an independent candidate and end up on the ballot in every state in this union. Educate us on that, because I think a lot of people will be shocked to know they may be planning to vote for an independent candidate, but that independent candidate has to do some things first before their names will even show up on the ballot.
And it really speaks to why you don't often see third candidates of an independent variety. There are a number of parties. You've got primarily the Republicans and Democrats, but you've also got a few other parties, Libertarian, Green, that have the infrastructure, right? This is a large country and it covers a lot of space. And you're talking about 50 states, so you're really talking about the infrastructure within 50 states, and you've got to qualify to get on the ballot. And the party apparatus allows you to do that. And so for Robert Kennedy, I think what he's looking at is very clearly he's not going to get the nomination of either of the 2 major parties. And I think from a branding standpoint, he looks at his name, and it's the it's the Kennedy name, and he wants to trade on that publicly as best he can. And so this notion that he would create a party, there's a lot of obstacles in doing that. You've got to raise an incredible amount of money to gather, enough signatures to be on enough ballots to even qualify for the November ballot. So it's a high bar for him to go. We'll see. I wouldn't put many coin behind that.
So, Richard, what does he do? He's only on one state ballot at this moment. That's Utah. And based on what what Ed just said, it's not likely that he's going to be able to have the kind of organizational structure that he needs to go much further. So what happens to a candidate like a Robert Kennedy that has such name recognition, but not a lot of money and not a lot of organization?
Not just name recognition, a lot of support. I mean, a lot of support. He is, unlike Biden and Trump, he is not underwater. More people approve of him than disapprove of him across the country. Here's a scenario that'll make your head spin. I believe Joe Manchin is going to run for president on no labels. They are very well funded. I believe they are primed to be on the ballot in a lot of states. What if we had a Joe Manchin, Robert Kennedy Jr. ticket, and no labels goal is to not have Donald Trump be the next president? That would be a very interesting ticket, even though they both would.
Why would Joe Manchin want Robert Kennedy, and why would Robert Kennedy want Joe Manchin?
To win. They actually are very intriguing candidates to a lot of people who feel disaffected. Robert Kennedy is very attractive to anti-vax Democrats and hardcore Republicans, and Joe Manchin is very attractive to moderate Democrats and independents and even some Republicans. Again, this is the weirdest presidential race in my lifetime. Anything is on the table. So I think we have to be creative. And just back to your previous point, Ron DeSantis, his game, he may not win any of the primaries, but a lot of the states have proportional representation. So he'll pick up delegates. And for example, in California or Texas, he could pick up a ton of delegates, and that's his game, just to do that. And I think he can do that without spending a lot of money.
What do you think of this Joe Manchin, Robert Kennedy? I don't see it, Ed. That sounds highly unlikely for two very, very arrogant, two very egotistical, narcissistic men coming together, deciding they're going to work together. Not likely.
Yeah, I tend to side that way. I mean, look, neither candidate has been tested, right? And if you ask somebody in a vacuum, what do you think of them? That's one thing. But now, once you start to hit them on their issues and their stances, it becomes a much different thing. Joe Manchin is not an appealing candidate. He has largely tried to stay Democrat, but he's really Republican in his votes. Republicans aren't going to vote for him because he's been a Democrat. He's not going to do well in this conversation. And honestly, I think the more that Kennedy speaks, the more he offends. And it's sort of a sad legacy to his father's name.
And where are these Dems that are anti-vaxxers? The heart of the Dem party are Black folks, and we are very much overwhelmingly in support of vaccines. So I don't know who Robert Kennedy is talking to, Richard, when you say there are all these anti-vaxxer Democrats. I think most people think Robert Kennedy is a joke, and he's just disgraced his family's name.
I would say a full third of the people I know here in Los Angeles who are Democrats love Robert Kennedy.
Those were those Democrats, Richard, you told me we were going to vote for Rick Caruso until Karen Bass kicked his butt.
A lot of Democrats did vote for Rick Caruso, but I am delighted that
Tell me
he did
about
not win.
All right, that's an inside joke. And Richard was coming on telling me all these Democrats are voting for Rick Caruso. I was like, who are these people you're talking to? Because I knew for certain that Rick Caruso was going to be really what was going to happen to him is what happened to him. I got to talk about the war some. Last time we were here, I had a lot of conversation about the war. The war is still looming large. That is the war that's going on in the Middle East. So, Ed, we know Bernie Sanders jumped out there and said he wants to get a resolution passed that says ceasefire until we get a report back about the human rights violations. And we know how popular, now talk about a popular Democrat, Richard, that was a democratic socialist. Bernie Sanders is that person. So, and what do you think Bernie may do on this whole ceasefire issue? Because the Biden administration doesn't seem anywhere near being ready to call for a ceasefire.
No, I think this is what the last time I was here, what I thought and what I said is I thought that this was an issue that stood to fracture a lot of the Democratic support, and that certainly for Biden, that if he can't hold his base, which is sort of his normal Democratic base, and combine that with the Bernie-crats, that he'd have a lot of trouble beating Donald Trump in the fall. I think what you see with Bernie is, I think two things. I mean, look, he's reacting to his base, and that group of voters is being very expressive about a call for a ceasefire and expressing their disdain for the violence in the Middle East and America's role in it, and that is what Bernie's stepping out on. I think Bernie's voice is an important, and well, it's something to note, right? Bernie is one of the few Jewish senators in senators, and for him to take a public stance like that, one criticizing the president from his party, criticizing the state of Israel publicly, it continues what I think is got to make Joe Biden and Kamala Harris very nervous, which is, as this flows on, and the more that the Biden administration unilaterally just backs what Netanyahu and that government is doing in the Middle East, they stand to risk a lot or lose a lot of support, as it starts to move towards the fall. We'll see. I mean, there are a lot of conversations to be had about this, but it's definitely one that I think we got to keep our eye on.
I agree with that. I think Joe Biden probably loses 15 electoral votes in Michigan unless something changes right now.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult for something to change because Biden is getting so much pressure to continue to support Israel, and Israel doesn't make it easy. And I think, Netanyahu continues to double down on the fact that no one's going to tell him what to do, and he's going to continue, his military invasion, and the rest of the world be damned. It'll be interesting to see what Biden and Harris does. Go ahead, Richard. You want to jump in?
Areva, listen, I hate Benjamin Netanyahu. I think he's a disgrace, but the vast, vast majority of the Israeli public approves of everything that he and the war cabinet are doing. That's a tough one. That's a tough one to go up against.
It is a very tough it's a tough one for Joe Biden. It's one of our biggest allies in that region, and there has been support for Israel. We know there continues to be amongst moderate and centrist Democrats continued support. So it's not as easy as, listen to the Bernie side. We've been here before with Bernie to the far left of moderate Democrats. So we've been at this juncture before. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. When we come forward, Donald Trump is taking a lot of shots at Nikki Haley. If he's not worried about her, why is he using the same birther argument that he used against Barack Obama now against Nikki Haley, suggesting she's not American enough to be president of the United States? Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580.
Listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
What's up? I'm tired of feeling so bloated. That used to be me. Then I got this.
Align bloating relief plus food digestion. A probiotic, right?
Yeah, it works naturally with your gut to help soothe occasional bloating and gas. Plus, it has vitamin B12 to aid digestion by helping convert food to cellular energy. 2 benefits, 1 capsule.
Align bloating relief plus food digestion from the #1 doctor-recommended probiotic brand. Learn more at alignprobiotics.com.
My dad has a cold, but also has high blood pressure. That's why I got him Vicks DayQuil High Blood Pressure for max strength daytime relief. Unlike some ordinary cold medicines, it's specially formulated for people like my dad. DayQuil High Blood Pressure is sugar-free, alcohol-free, and decongestant-free.
Vicks DayQuil High Blood Pressure. The daytime, non-drowsy, coughing, aching, fever, sore throat, cold, and flu for people with high blood pressure.
Like my dad.
Medicine. Use it directed.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed? Because no two people sleep the same. Only the Sleep Number smart bed lets you each choose your individual firmness and comfort, your Sleep Number setting. The Climate 360 smart bed is so smart, it actively cools or warms up to 13 degrees on either side for your ideal sleep temperature. The Queen Sleep Number C2 smart bed is now only $9.90. Plus, free home delivery when you add any base. Ends Monday. Price is higher in Alaska and Hawaii. To find a store near you, visit sleepnumber.com.
You're all set with your Medicare prescriptions, Mrs. Brown.
This is not just low-cost copays at Walgreens.
I can actually help you set up 90-day refills if you want.
This is having a partner you can trust. Get low-cost copays, 90-day refills, and delivery from your neighborhood Walgreens. This is being independent. Together. Walgreens.
Restrictions apply. For details, see walgreens.com/pharmacy.
Pizza's here.
Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
It's game day at Jim's house, and the spread is impressive.
Mike's already done some damage with the hot wings, and now he's dropping back and going deep for another slice of pizza.
I sure hope he brought the Pepto.
Mike knows that Pepto-Bismol provides fast 5-symptom relief from unexpected stomach upsets. He's no rookie.
The way he's throwing back those nachos, he's the GOAT.
Be ready for game day with Pepto-Bismol.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, and diarrhea.
Use that.
All right, we are back with Ed Sanders and Richard Green. We are talking today's political news, and in hour two, we're going to be talking about your health and things that can save your life. If you are a woman or a minority, you should be concerned because a report out yesterday says there is a 20 to 30% chance that you will receive a misdiagnosis in a hospital. So make sure you stick around for hour two. All right, Ed, if Donald Trump's not worried about Nikki Haley, which he, of course, has dismissed all of the candidates running for president on the GOP side, why is he spending millions of dollars in New Hampshire? And why is he trying to question Nikki Haley's, qualifications to be president, i.e. using the same old tired racist tropes that he used with Barack Obama, suggesting that she somehow wasn't born in the United States. She's not a U.S. citizen.
Yeah, I mean, look, listen, if Donald Trump is anything, he's thorough in his desire to hand out insults, right? I think all through the last campaign cycle, if it wasn't Ted Cruz or whatever other Republican was on the ballot at the time, he insulted everybody. It's an interesting one for me to listen to, right? Like, and I always approach it this way. I watch Nikki Haley and I watch her talk about her family and the role of her parents' immigration into the States. But also at the same time, you simply don't necessarily hear her use her birth given name. And there's something about that is unnerving. Barack Obama stood confidently in his identity, who he is. I'm Barack Hussein Obama, and these are the reasons why I'm running for office. Nikki tends to hide from it. And while she references her parents', immigration, she really doesn't sort of stand on her family name, right? She is married to a Haley and thus goes by that. But, to me, it's kind of unnerving.
Well, Nikki, there were reports out that she had previously checked a box saying she was white. We know she has some weird notion of the Civil War and its relationship to slavery, and just recently said that America is not a racist country. Tried to make, again, some gaslighting distinction that, yes, there is racism in America, but America's not a racist country. Explain that one for me, Richard.
She's nuts.
Okay, that's a good explanation.
I mean, honestly, I felt that her slavery Civil War answer was disqualifying. I think that was flat out disqualifying.
More disqualifying than all of Trump's, or you mean in addition to the ones he's made?
In addition, I mean, if it was up to me, all Republicans would have been disqualified. I mean, it's insane. And to answer your question, the reason he's doing it is because it works. Because this is a racist country, and by trumpeting the fact that she is not really a normal white European Caucasian American, she is ineligible to run. And that has some traction with people voting in the Republican primary. He's a very, very, very smart con man.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would say, like, and to your point about, it being disqualifying, I mean, let's not forget, she is the former governor of the state of South Carolina, the first state to secede, and very clearly in South Carolina's declaration, it was about slavery. And so any, third, fourth, fifth grade student should know that in the South Carolina, in the country, but certainly the governor of South Carolina would know that. And it just sort of speaks to this, to Richard, what you touched on, which is, look, the easiest way for a Republican to gain support has always typically been, let me kick a Black person. And you see DeSantis doing it in Florida. We're going to ban, this wokeness. We're going to ban, the study of African-American history. And Nikki is doing her part to sort of skate the line. And, that we're not, the history of this country isn't rooted in this racist behavior, but it is. And I think the country understands that. But I also think there is a portion of the country, and it is the 78 million that voted for Donald Trump, that simply don't care and are willing to sort of whitewash that history and go past it. And, we will argue about it till the end of time, but there is no accountability for that. They are who they are, and that's what they profess. And that's why they shouldn't be elected to higher office in this country.
Well, talking about kicking Black people, Elise Stefanik, it was kicking Dr. Claudine Gay, and now there's a new article out, a recent article on MSNBC.com that says she is perhaps the #1 candidate for VP on a Donald Trump ticket. Donald Trump was at a dinner recently, and he called her, quote, a killer. She's a killer. He says he loves her. And people close to the Trump campaign says she's being highly considered for VP. This is the 39-year-old Harvard graduate, got kicked off one of the Harvard advisory boards because she wouldn't admit that Joe Biden had won the presidential election, and was running around saying she was responsible for getting Claudine Gay ousted as the first Black woman president of Harvard University. So, Richard, is this the kind of Black person kicker that Republicans like Donald Trump loves?
I am praying that Elise Stefanik is the nominee for vice president. She is just disgusting. In fact, a member of Congress, who I won't mention, says that her nickname in Congress is Moronic Stefanik. No, she's completely.
Listen, I don't want that. That puts her a heartbeat away from the presidency. And
no, but she can't win. I know. I do not believe that people who would look at Elise Stefanik, realizing that Donald Trump is not a spring chicken, would say, I want that person to be one heartbeat away. And I really don't. I think it really hurts Trump. Can I throw in some really good news in the middle of all of this? So people keep saying that Joe Biden is weak and he's ineffective. He just released his plan to stand up to big banks across the country and take billions of dollars away from them by capping overdraft fees instead of $30, $35, $40, which is obscene, to like $3 or less. I think that's the kind of guts that we need to communicate to the country that this guy still has, no matter what age he is.
No, I think you're right. And those kinds of things that the Biden administration, there's so many things from, taking on big pharma with drugs like diabetes drugs and other things that people aren't hearing enough of. I want to give it up for our vice president. She was on The View this morning. She's going to be on Good Morning America. She is crisscrossing this country, doing media appearances, doing groups, meetings, and she's trying to get the word out. We need more surrogates. We need more people out on the campaign trail because there are things like that that are going to help everyday people. Who doesn't bounce a check every now and then and get so frustrated to have to pay $35 to $40 that would be relieved if that fee is $3? Okay, Ed, we're almost out of time. Give us your 40-second assessment of what's going to happen this election year, because it's a lot of, as Richard said, ups and downs and twists and turns. What are you expecting?
I think that Joe Biden is going to have to move the needle on some of the promises that he's made. Richard, I had the good fortune to do a lot of work on removing menthol as a product, as a tobacco product in California. And, I think we have seen the Biden administration struggle to get, something as simple as that through the FDA. As you mentioned here with bank overdraft fees, I think it is a great thing. I would vote for that. I would really be supportive of it. I think getting it done is where Biden is going to struggle. And, it's this conversation for Democrats. If he's unable to deliver on some of those key things, it really is going to weigh him down going into November. I hope he's able to get it done, but we'll see. It makes for a better country if Biden wins re-election.
Well, there's no country if Donald Trump wins the election. And just on the menthol part, I don't think it's an issue of getting it through the FDA. There's been a lot of opposition amongst some civil rights groups and high-profile African Americans who've been fighting that. So I think the White House is kind of torn in an election year when there are folks like you and others who are fighting against it. We are out of time, guys. Thank you so much. Your brilliance is always appreciated. Stick around for hour 2. We're going to be talking about things that could save your life if you ever find yourself hospitalized. KBLA Talk 1580.